So, well,
Yeah, everyone's in front.
perfect. Do you know who's going first for who's going to speak?
Jay, this is the video guy.
Shalom, everybody. My name is Rabbi Josh Lobel. I'm the spiritual leader here at Temple B'nai Israel. We're going to begin our service in just a moment. So everyone, please rise as the family enters the sanctuary. Please be seated. Death has taken our beloved Bruce. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. We know how much Bruce will be missed by his family and friends. Our hearts go out to his children, Jay, Jenny, and Robbie, and their partners, Sandy, Todd, and Christy, as well as to his grandchildren, Leah, Jacob, Noah, Skylar, Samantha, Allison, and Lauren. We also send our prayers to Bruce's wife, Amy, and his sister, Ellen, at this moment of grief. For all who loved Bruce, and for all who Bruce loved, we offer you the deepest condolences of our hearts. May you find comfort in your family, your friends, and your faith. For Bruce's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for his companionship that we shared along life's path and continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of sacred scripture, which brings us the ever new message of God's nearness. It tells of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. We begin with Psalm 121. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, the creator of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, God neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. A reading from Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo ektzar, benot deshe yarbitzeni, al me menuchot inahaleni, nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'magre tzedek למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ובשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורי. תשענת והשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage from birth to death to life everlasting. The child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves for the mystery of life and quietly say, Though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious of gifts, the gift of life. And the child asked, Tell me of death. The sage answered, Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others, and at the appointed time we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that what we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on. I now call to come forward Jay and Sandy to share some words of memory and love.
This is impossible, but I will try anyways. Aging has most impaired my ability to park a car and to speak about my family in public without losing it. So I'll do my best. Lauren, what's the over-under on when I'll be inconsolable and you'll have to finish this eulogy? What do we got? 90 seconds? A minute? Yeah? Okay. All right, good. Let's see how we do. So I think I'll start with a little help from all my friends who are here today and family. Not so much as a warm-up, but a ward-off for my impending Tear Fest. So if anyone has a word that comes to mind when they think of my dad, feel free just to say it. I'd like to hear it, or raise your hand. And selfless. Thoughtful. Wonderful. Loyal. Kind. Silent hero. Gentle. Q-tip. Fuzzy face. Diet Coke. Absolutely. Great job. Thank you. Thank you all. I have a couple too. The Padre, the legend, the gray ghost, the great provider, the patriarch, and Bruce Almighty. Many names, many roles. Okay, sure. Father, husband, grandpa, son, cousin, uncle, brother, check, check, and check. And then the ones that most of you know: pediatrician, Zionist, political advocate, community pillar, Jewish icon, the mayor of Royal Palms, and Bolts, Rays, Bucks, Indians, Bucks, and Gators fan. And how about some that you don't know? Airline pilot, sexual education instructor at the JCC. Yep, and I had to sit through that, 12 years old. Yeah, oh yeah. Baseball umpire, U.S. Army major, sailor, soccer referee, frisky Beethoven conductor. We'll tell you guys about that later. New York Times author, keeper of political secrets, and published pediatric academic. My dad did not multitask, and it was a strength and a gift. He touched thousands of lives, one gesture, one conversation, one sage piece of advice at a time. Wisdom Incorporated. It was him and you, intentionally, one moment at a time, and always with a smile, a hopeful inquiry into yours and your family's well-being, and later in life, a friendly wave from his wheelchair and an optimistic beckoning to join him for a chat. He was the most extroverted introvert that you will ever meet. He invested himself in his family, his friends, his patients, his community, and his Judaism. For those so lucky to have known him, you will be collecting the principal of that investment plus ample interest for the rest of your life. I'm certain that Dad would not want any of us crying away the next several days of opportunity to enjoy this time together. Leaving us as he did and when he did merely gave us all an excuse and to enjoy each other's company, which was certainly a pleasure of his. Likely the most common condolence offering is, anything I can do for you? Well, yeah, actually. There is something that everybody in this room can do for me. Things that I think that Dad would like. Share with me and others a story about a common experience with him. Live life generously and always give of yourself and your resources with warm hands. Listen to others with your full attention and all of your heart. Carry yourself unassumingly and walk humbly, meeting people where they are, not where you need or want them to be. Call your dad. Call your mom. Go visit them. And when you do, leave your cell phone and your watch in the car. Reconcile with any estranged relative or friend while you still have time. Do things for others with no expectation or need for their thanks or appreciation. Be inclusive. There is room at the table for everybody. Serve others and repair the world, one person, one project, and one problem at a time. Never underestimate the power and the importance of the 5 words, let's go for ice cream. And never say no. Buy the ticket, book the trip, attend the play, sing your songs loudly, live your life. So what can all of you do for me and my family? You can honor my dad for living your life as he did his.
We now call to come forward Jenny and Todd.
I might cry more, Jay. I don't know. In this moment of overwhelming grief that has covered us all with sadness and loss, there also comes some stillness. The stillness is that I will no longer hear Dad shuffling down the hallway at Regal Palms, saying hello to everyone he encountered, no matter who you were. It also comes in that I won't be able to talk to him after work every day, just to check in and see how his day was. No matter how it was, he always ended every phone call telling me how much he loved me. I'll definitely miss those calls. I always saw my dad as an insightful man, and his conversation, did that just move? Wow. And his conversation with Rabbi Tad a week prior to the holidays proved just that. Dad asked him if it was a sin to die on Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi responded, telling him it was the holiest of things you can do. Well, my dad doubled down and waited until Yom Kippur to pass away. I bet that as most of you were in temple praying away your sins, my dad was sitting back with an Ohio State t-shirt on, sipping his Diet Coke with no ice, smiling, knowing he had no sins to atone for as far as I or anyone that knew him thought. The man was perfect. He was the perfect husband, always doting on my mom. He was the perfect father. At every soccer game, school play, awards ceremony, and our biggest cheerleader. And he was the perfect papa to his 7 grandchildren. This is a time to reflect on the life, accomplishments, and legacies of an amazing man, as we all feel the void sink into our hearts with the thought of not being able to spend time with Dad anymore. I hope that we can take this opportunity to remember those treasured memories we've all had with him. I'll share with you just a few. For all 4 years, mind you, all 4 years, I was in college at the University of Arizona. I got a piece of mail from that man every day. Yes, every day he'd send me something in the mail, just to make sure I knew he was thinking about me. When Leah was little and we were visiting St. Pete, I was trying to potty train her. And Dad said to me in his pediatric voice, "Don't ever bribe them with anything. No matter what you do, don't bribe them." Well, as you all know, Leah is very stubborn. She was a nightmare to train and refused to cooperate with me. One day, Mom and I left to go shopping, and we had Dad stay with Leah. He said, "Don't worry, she'll be fine. I got this." When I got home, Leah marched up to us, and she had this white powder all over her face. I looked at my dad, and I said, "Dad, what did Leah get into? What is on her face?" And he said, "I gave her some bubble tape to try to get her to pee, and guess what? She peed for me." So much for not bribing anybody. When Leah was 3 and Jacob was a newborn, Mom and Dad came to visit us in Cleveland. And again, we left Dad with the care of his 2 grandchildren. We came home, and I noticed that Jacob's diaper was on backwards. And Leah was standing over him with her hands on her hips, and she said, "I told Papa that was the wrong way to put that diaper on." There's really nothing extraordinary about that story except that I always found it amusing that Dad took care of thousands of kids, saw thousands of diapers, and couldn't figure out which direction to put Jacob's diaper on. Anytime the kids came in town, Dad had little gifts waiting on their car seat. A new book, some bubbles, or a pack of M&Ms. In fact, do you remember those chunky little books with the flaps in them? You would open the barn door and there'd be a horse under it, or you'd open the closet and find some shoes. Well, not Leah and Jacob's books. Nope. If you open those flaps, there'd be little cutout pictures of Mom and Dad. He always said he wanted to be sure his grandkids knew what he looked like since he didn't live in town with them. There's no denying that my dad built meaningful relationships throughout his life. He was gifted in that way. And all the people that came into his life became a part of his web of caring and love. As I look back on my childhood, and especially watching the relationship Dad built with Leah and Jacob, he always had a way of making you feel special. It didn't matter what grade you got on your test, how good you did in sports, or even socially with your friends. Dad instilled in us a sense of confidence, competence, self-worth, independence, and leadership. When Dad was with you, he made you feel as if you were the most important thing in the world. With that being said, I know that this synagogue is filled with all of you that share deep and meaningful relationships with him. And I know you understand what I'm talking about. We all got how Dad made us feel understood and cared for. In a special way, he was always there to listen and help if there was a problem. In fact, my brothers and I know he would begin and end every phone call with, "You need anything?" So how do you say goodbye to someone who's been with you your entire life? When I couldn't see it, he always saw the best in me, right or wrong. He was always on my side. And although I'm sad right now, I'm not scared of what my life will look like without him, because I know he'll be with me every day in every way. To know him, to be with him, to have him in your corner, in your life, or in your heart, and now in your memory, is a blessing. And anyone who knew Dad felt fortunate. I know I did. He taught me so much about life, but one thing he always told me was to laugh at myself first. Many of you know that when my dad laughed, he made no sounds at all. His shoulders would just shake up and down like this. No words, no sound came out. So last Saturday night when I was sitting with Dad, I told him this joke that he appreciated and I want to share with you. 3 elderly women were sitting by the pool at their assisted living residence. One of them noticed an elderly man napping on a lounge chair flat on his back, totally naked except for a towel over his face and another over his privates. "Who's that?" one woman asked her friends. "I don't know," one of them answered. "Let's go find out." So they walked over to the sleeping man, and one woman gently lifted his towel from his waist, took a look, replaced the towel, and said, "Not my husband." The second woman also walked over, lifted the towel, examined the naked man, put the towel back in its place, and said, "Not my husband either." Finally, the third woman lifted the towel from the man's waist. Hold on. Took a careful look, put the towel back, shrugged, and said, "He doesn't even live in this complex." Although Dad couldn't speak and he was unresponsive Saturday night, I could still see his shoulders bouncing and knew he was laughing. Just last weekend, Todd and I went and saw the Pink concert in Nashville. In one of her songs, she asked, "Where does everybody go when they go?" I know where my dad went every day. He went to kiss my mom goodbye in the morning. Then he went to make the three of us breakfast. Then he packed our lunches with little notes inside. Then he rounded on his newborns. Then he stopped at 7-Eleven to get an 84-ounce big gulp for himself and coffee for his entire staff. Then he took care of his patients, but more importantly, he took care of the parents that brought the patients in to be seen. Then you go to 3 soccer games, first Robbie's junior varsity, then my varsity, then Jay's varsity game, sitting through over 6 hours on those awful metal Shorecrest bleachers. Then he'd return to the hospital, round once again on his patients, come home, kiss his wife, and tuck the 3 of us in bed. My dad touched more lives than we can count. In fact, when we arrived in the ER Tuesday morning, the ER nurse had been one of his patients. And one of his ICU nurses had also been one of his patients. As kids, we could not go anywhere in town without someone saying, "Hey, that's Dr. Epstein, he's my pediatrician." And my dad proudly remembered their names as well as their parents' names. My dad was and is royalty. He sets examples for all of us on how to do the right thing and to always put others before you. He used to tell me how lucky I was, how lucky he was to be my dad. But you know what? I was the lucky one. I love you, Dad. I did it till the end.
We now invite to come forward Robbie and Christy.
This past Father's Day, my daughter Skylar got me one of those wooden plaques with the inspirational quotes and sayings on it. This one was entitled Dad. It started with Dad in all caps and had the phonetic breakdown of all the 5 definitions that I feel are so appropriate embodies my dad. 1, a handsome man of superhuman abilities. Bruce, check. Creator of the dad joke, scarer of monsters, and fixer of all things broken. This one kind of perplexed me. My dad, being Jewish, thought superglue was the fixer of everything. So maybe not the fixer part, but then my wife pointed out that he was the fixer, quote unquote, of over half of Pinellas County through his dedication to pediatrics. Tens of thousands of citizens in Pinellas County were touched by his ability to heal and to make people feel at ease no matter what ailed them. So yes, Bruce, check. Number 3, tough on the outside, soft on the inside. I don't really think that requires any further insight. Bruce, check. Protector, guardian, carer, and friend. Once again, check. And number 5, the most amazing man in the whole world. Duh, double check on that one. Most people don't know this, but my dad and I have the same middle name. Yes, Jay, it's spelled the same. And the same amazing brown eyes. Starting when I was young, I always loved going very early in the morning with my dad to make rounds at all children and Bayfront hospitals. I was happy because this always included a stop at 7-Eleven for his big gulp Diet Coke and powdered donuts and orange juice for me. After rounds, we would go to one of his offices, and my dad would put me in charge of telling one of his front desk girls how I could help. This usually entailed me doing about 10 minutes of filing, going into his office for a long break, and scoring $20 for my day's work.
Wait, you didn't finish.
I bet most of you here today believe Jay and Jenny were perfect siblings to me. So far from the truth. At our house at Baywood, I was not known to be the tidiest or most responsible kid in town. I know this comes as a shock to all of you. My sister and brother would go to the top of the stairs and bang on them like my dad was coming up to inspect my room or punish me for something I most likely did. When this began, I started throwing my mess under my bed with hopes to thwart the possible backlash. They did this so often to me to get my room clean. The one time I didn't do it, he actually was there, belt in hand. Go figure. Fast forward a few years, my dad had a canary yellow MG convertible sports car. I wanted so badly to learn how to drive stick shift. With absolute patience, he sat beside me in the driveway for hours, going back and forth. First gear, reverse. First gear, reverse. You get the point. What blew me away the most was that one day, he came home from work, tired and exhausted as usual. He threw me the keys and told me to go practice in the neighborhood. I thought that I was such a bad ass, sorry. Here, I'm 15 years old driving this amazing sports car. He never failed to make me feel important that way. Incidentally, he also taught me that when you drive a convertible with the top down, it's okay to have the AC or heat on. That is, in fact, required. Bet you don't know that my dad was a renowned chef, in his mind, that is. Every Monday and Thursday, when he didn't make rounds, he would make Jay, Jenny, and I his famous scrambled eggs. We were not allowed to call him Dad on these mornings. He politely requested we refer to him as Chef Talp. He also was in charge of packing lunches these days. I can't tell you how many times I bit into a sandwich and found a Post-it note in the center of it. It was always a positive, happy note exemplified by his signature smiley face under the O's for and good. So as you know, my dad was the biggest Shorecrest Charger fan ever, cheering for my brother, my sister, and I in all the sports we played. My junior year, I started playing football as a place kicker, and I was actually pretty good, although Dad would have said I was good either way. I started to get calls and letters from colleges and universities about my newfound skill. So my dad took it upon himself my senior year to try and video record every single kick, extra point, or field goal that I did. When the football season was coming to an end, my dad compiled a 45-minute highlight reel of all my successes on the field. Even with all his family and work responsibilities, my dad spent countless hours putting together this on my behalf. Back then, there was no internet, so my dad mailed several dozen VHS tapes to some big-time universities that I was interested in. As you know, I was very lucky to play football at the University of Arizona. My dad may not have been there for every game, but I knew after every win we had, there was a Wildcat singing Bear Down, Arizona, our fight song in St. Petersburg, Florida. As you know, my dad was such a generous man with his hard-earned money. He took the 5 of us on countless trips from coast to coast, Europe and Israel. In high school, we started taking family cruises every year. One cruise in particular, I found myself up late one night with some buddies I met on the cruise, and they seemed to convince me to ice up my ear and stick an earring in my ear. The next morning, of course, my dad was not pleased about this. We were in St. Thomas walking around various shops, and I found a Walkman CD player that I desperately wanted. Dad, playing Monty Hall, asked me if he was to buy me this said CD player, would I lose my new accessory? I thought for a moment. I have to say, that evening on the ship, was so much better as I listened to music to drown out my sister and brother's teasing. I guess we both won that day. Speaking of traveling, my dad was an avid Buccaneers fan since their inception in 1976. He always said they sucked and would never go to a Super Bowl in his lifetime. I remember the exact time and place when I got a call from my brother after Rondé Barber intercepted a pass and scored a touchdown to seal their spot in Super Bowl 37. My brother said to me, "Dad said get your butt home. We're getting on a Bucs charter and going to see the Super Bowl in San Diego." The seats were not great, but I know that my dad spent a fortune for my brother and I to experience one of the greatest sports games, greatest games in sports. Win or lose, the Epstein men bonded, and it was a weekend that I will never forget. The Bucs actually win, which was icing on the cake. I could always get my dad to laugh. I recited various movie lines from Airplane, the movie. "Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor? What's our Clarence, Clarence? Surely you're not serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. Hospital, what is it? It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now." And lastly, another line my dad loved was from Father of the Bride. "Armani does not make a blue tuxedo." And he said that countless times. I always seemed to know when Dad needed a good laugh, and usually it worked. My dad was an avid pilot and loved the freedom of the skies. I too share the same passion. My dad encouraged me my junior year in high school to obtain my private pilot's license. I have to admit it's been a long time since I flew, but I promise you this today. One day I'll be back in the sky, and my dad will be sitting right next to me with a huge smile on his face. A couple more stories and I will pass the mic. My dad taught me not only to be a man, but an honest and compassionate human being. He was always patient and helpful whenever one of us needed him. Side note, I hope there are no Shorecrest teachers here today, because my dad was amazing at term papers, doing research, and helping me get through high school. My dad always put his family first no matter what. In fact, he was the most selfless man I have ever known. He taught me how to be the best dad that I can be to my beautiful children, Noah and Skylar. I often say or do something, and I hear his voice saying it to me. He has made me a better person and a father to be proud of. My last story is a testament to this family. As I was leaving the ICU on Sunday night, I walked up to his nurse, Karen, who was so terrific for my dad. I wanted to thank her for all she did for us on that difficult day. Instead, she hugged me and thanked me because she said she had never experienced a family that loved and cared and respected so completely a member of their family as much as ours did. That was my dad's amazing spirit, and it will continue to live in all of us. Christy, my wife, wants to say a couple of things.
I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I think Rob did an amazing job exemplifying the many incredible qualities of Dad. There's a couple things that I'd really like to add. As many of you know, Rob and I had a rocky road at the beginning of our relationship, since I wasn't Jewish. Knowing what I know now, I realized that everyone was doing the best they could in uncharted waters. We grew as a family as a result of these circumstances. In the past 5 years, every time I saw Dad, he grabbed my hand and he looked me in the eyes and he told me how sorry he was. It was so sweet, but not necessary, as my heart had already forgiven him. Dad taught Rob to be such a selfless husband and father, and someone that I can count on no matter what. He so often reminds me of Dad when he asks the kids and I almost daily, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Dad really touched me on such a deep level. As you all know, that when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, he seemed to have control over the physical symptoms for such a long time, and he never let the disease get the best of him. When my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor, it seemed to coincide with when Dad really started feeling the physical symptoms of his Parkinson's. My mom so quickly declined, and it seemed to happen at the same time for Dad. They both started using a walker, which was foreign to both of them. At the time, she felt so alone. Dad was there in his own loneliness as his disease progressed. My mom and Rob's dad set up a standing appointment twice a week at our house to support one another and talk about the difficulties of losing independence and becoming a prisoner in their own body. It was such a beautiful connection to watch, and one that I understand so much better now. When Dad was lying in his hospital bed this past week, he promised me that when he passed on, that he would find my mom, and he would take her by the hand and let her know how much we miss her. Now the reality has set in, how much we miss them both. Two beautiful souls. I know that they're together again, supporting one another. I feel so blessed that we will now have two angels looking over our family. You did too.
I now call up my colleague, Rabbi Ted Berga, to speak a few words.
I'm not quite sure how I follow all of that, these beautiful words, but as we Scots are known to say, and if you'll forgive me, I'll bloody blinking well try. Today, in this sacred moment, in this holy place, we pause to honor and remember our loved one, Dr. Bruce Epstein. Born of the heart of God, filled with joy and laughter, hope and love, Bruce blessed all of our days with his holy presence. In both good times and bad, times of pain or joy, no matter how difficult or how blessed life felt, Bruce walked with us through the divine miracle of his birth as a child of God and a son of Israel. We stand today on holy ground, for this is where we are called to both remember and celebrate the life and the miracle of Dr. Bruce Epstein. To the many of you who knew and loved him, I can only pray I somehow today do him due justice. Bruce was a man who walked through this life as many things: a devoted husband to Amy, a loving father to Jay, Jenny, and Robbie, a doting grandfather, a caring brother, and a beloved friend, physician and philanthropist, musician and sports fanatic, and so much more. Bruce was also a humble Jewish man who blessed us with the gift of his tender smile and his pure and good heart. I told him often that if he was anything, he was a living bracha, a blessing, with a truly good and righteous soul who saw his life's purpose was to give to others, to heal their bodies, love their hearts, and to help guide anyone who came his way toward finding a little bit of heaven here on earth. Bruce truly reminded us of just who it is who gives us life. Every single moment, Bruce lived what the Talmud teaches us, to take the ordinary and make it something quite extraordinary. And why would he not? For Bruce himself is a most extraordinary gift, now and always tied to our hearts in sweet ribbons of memory. How lucky, no, how blessed am I that he invited me into the sacred space of his house and his heart. I never saw him as a patient, for you see, the moment we met, I found in Dr. Bruce Ahava, my holy friend. a fellow traveler, a seeker like me of the path of Hashem. We shared his many gifts, his humor, the stories of his beloved family. We talked together of Torah, our common bond in faith, and we joyfully sang the songs from Fiddler on the Roof more times than I can count. However, every moment with Dr. Bruce was a tiny miracle he lovingly gave me, and I would not trade a single moment. Sorry, the rabbi's not supposed to cry. Through all of this, Dr. Bruce soon became family, as did his children and his grandchildren, whom I thank for the gift and the miracle of being invited to walk by your sides. Sorry. Dr. Bruce and I shared many uplifting chats, ones forever written upon my heart. Once, he asked me where I thought our neshama, our soul, comes from and to where it returns. I told him then what I'd like to tell you now. My friends, our spirits are born from the same light God breathed into existence on the first day of creation. When we are born, Hashem takes a small piece of that light and he places it inside of us to become our soul. And that light glows and it shines and it grows and it warms all that we love. When our body dies, as sadly has Bruce's, God carries that same light, our souls, to the land of becoming. But not all of the light, for you see, God leaves a small piece of that light here with us to remind us that though Bruce is gone from our sight, he will always be no further away than the palm of your hand. I ask you to know, truly know, Bruce's light has left a fingerprint upon our souls. Whenever we miss him, you long for him to be near. Simply put your hand upon your chest, and there you will find him in your heartbeat. Welcome his light and feel his warmth in each sunrise, every glorious sunset, the twinkling of 1,000,000 stars, and in the inner and raging storm of our grief, we will find him as our promised rainbow. Yes, in the miracle of love. Our abiding love is perhaps something not to be understood nor explained, not a question in search of an answer, or a puzzle with a missing piece. More than brushstrokes upon the canvas of our shared lives. For our love for Bruce, like our love for one another, is a song composed of emotions, where each note sings in a cascading melody of timelessness, as steady as the beating drum of hope and spirit and sorrow, pain and healing, all accompanied by the harmonious indwelling, which is woven together into a beautiful and colorful tapestry. Bruce is the priceless golden thread sewn into our collective hearts. He is the song, the rhyme, the promise of love, forever walking by our sides. Hand in hand and heart to heart, together we write this song, one we shall hear time and again in the gift, the miracle of our memories with Bruce. Our love is as solid as the earth upon which we walk, as sustaining as the air we breathe. Together, we embrace the gift, the miracle of his memory. Upon the shores of the flowing river of life, Bruce now strolls, where all his questions are answered, his pains healed, his promises fulfilled. He is now in this day, this moment, complete and whole. His light lovingly, peacefully guiding us onward. Bruce's memory lives on in us, in our every thought, tear, laughter, and yes, heartbeat. Here, we reach out and take hold of his colorful thread, now becoming the rope of life, connecting our souls ever as one. Today, we tie a knot in this thread, where Bruce knows he is with us in this life, as there we are with him. My friends, we walk this same sacred thread between earth and heaven, yes, between life and death. From the moment we are born, we are created as one people to share this sacred journey with those we love, as we have with Bruce. Together, we walk toward the face of the rising mountain, guided in the divine light that permeates even the furthest land. For once more, we are reborn in the beckoning twilight of the approaching dawn, where sunlight grows bright and the vast and colorful rainbow that is Bruce sings of eternal promise. And we hear Hashem's calling song birthed after the darkened rain, to behold the dove's awaiting gift upon smooth horizons of newfound hope, as yesterday and tomorrow merge as partners in the sacred dance. Life and death here crescendos into that saving and eternal song written upon the souls of we, God-seeking children, who at last breathes a sigh, yes, of relief, but more so of praise, to finally and at once dwell in heaven's sweet home. Today, Bruce, you have found your home. Dr. Bruce, may your journey to the beyond, to the land of becoming, be a smooth and easy one, into the mystery which awaits us all. One day we shall see you again and walk with you in the Garden of Eden, blessed to know and have all that is good and holy, all that is of God. And for this, for the gift, the love, the beautifully colored spirit that is you, Dr. Bruce, we ask that eternal peace, forever shalom, shall this moment and always most surely be yours. And may this be made so. Amen.
We now call to come forward Howard Steinler, Bruce's brother-in-law.
Thank you. This has been an amazing ceremony so far, in my view. At my age, I've attended many, many funerals, unfortunately, and the remarks that have been said so far have been very, very impactful, very truthful, and have led me to decide to cast aside the speech that I was going to give. Instead, I will recite the basics of what I had intended to say, and then I will close. I want to share with you my heartfelt thoughts about Bruce, having known him for more than 60 years. If I wanted to select a better and more thoughtful and more helpful brother-in-law, I could not. If I wanted to find a more caring, loving, and protective husband, I could not. If I wanted to find a more concerned, attentive, and generous grandfather, I could not. If I wanted to find a better friend, someone who is there in the good times, the difficult times, and in between, I could not. If I tried to find a substitute or replacement for Bruce, I could not. If there is a heaven, Bruce Epstein will be there for sure, looking after his family and friends in every way as he did during his entire lifetime. Having said that, I cannot think of a better way to describe Bruce, the life he led, and the path he has left for those he loved. When I walked in earlier, I noticed that there, and when you walk out, you'll see that there is a large scroll-like canvas on the left-hand side. And that was put together by the Epstein family in honor of Bruce's 80th birthday in April, at which time the family gathered to celebrate that birthday. And I want to just read for you very quickly the note that I had left in connection with that particular event. Always, always there for the family, no matter the time, the place, or the circumstances. I do not know anyone else who cares so much for so many. I could not ask for a better brother-in-law and friend. Thank you.
We now invite to come forward Bruce's sister, Ellen. And friends.
Oh, am I that short?
Can't hurt. Thank you for that.
An incredible shrinker. Wow, look at these, look at you. All together to remember and celebrate my remarkable brother. Thank you for honoring him. But before I begin, I personally and publicly want to thank and honor the medical professionals, the caretakers that gave my brother quality life with dignity. The core four were Loida, Sharon, Johnny, and Mother Teresa. There's a special place in heaven for these people. Bruce was my brother, but became my father when our father died at 40 years old. He died due to complications that he suffered from a gas explosion fire in his warehouse. I was 10 years old. My brother was 15. Bruce's childhood and innocence was over. Mine was saved because of Bruce. He did things from that point on only a father would do. He taught me how to drive. He bought me my first pair of high heels against my mother's wishes. He taught me how to ballroom dance, and he let me step on his feet while we danced. He wasn't such a saint, though. He practiced wrestling moves on me, and I kept on saying, "It's a fake." He was a talented musician, adept at piano, flute and piccolo, and saxophone. I love this story. When he was in the marching band at high school, leading the band in formation on the field, spelling HHS, Heights High School. And he made the wrong turn to spell out HHH. We always got a laugh out of that. He was active politically and worked for an Ohio congressman in college. And when President Kennedy was assassinated, he called my mom on a payphone to tell her he wasn't coming home that day. He was going to Washington, D.C. I just have to be there. To my brother, learning was his sport. He loved research and always had 2 typewriters at his desk. One was for the questions, the other was for the answers. He taught me just about everything and couldn't wait for me to get home. Oh, he made tests for me and taught me everything, tutored me, and couldn't wait for me to get home to find out how we did on a test. His looking after me continued even as an adult when my husband died suddenly at 50 years old. I was unprepared and did not take an active role in any of our finances, investments, taxes, or his practice. I just said, "Where's the money?" I was a sign here kind of wife, didn't I? He said, "Don't you want to read it?" I said, "Why, are you going to screw me?" Okay. But Bruce came to my rescue that time too, holding a meeting with all the lawyers, accountants, stockbrokers, and dentists in town. He put security lights around my house, and it was like the White House. Alarms, he put an alarm system on. I said, "Nobody wants me." He put me on a path to living solo. But my favorite Bruce story is when I had to buy a car. I went to dealerships around town, and he suggested, "Go to Lexus. They have a great service policy." I said, "You know what, Bruce, it's really too expensive." So I settled on a Hyundai. I was all set, about to pull the trigger about the Hyundai, when the Lexus dealer called and said, "What would it take for you to buy a Lexus?" I gave him the Hyundai price, and he said, "Sold." When I went to sign my contract, on his desk, I saw a little post-it that was sort of hidden, and it said, "Dr. Epstein, call him back." You know that story. There were many stories like that he gave me. Oh, there were many stories like that. He gave me away when I got married, and he gave me life to this very day. He held on just this past week as I was on a trip of a lifetime with my son and daughter that my son provided me for my 75th birthday. He held on until I landed in Florida, and Emily turned to me and said, when she got service, she turned to me and said, "He died." He waited. He never stopped taking care of me. And so I say to him now, did you ever know you were my hero? You're everything I wish I could be. I could fly higher than an eagle, for you are the wind beneath my wings. Fly, 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 high against the sky, so high I can touch the sky. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are the wind beneath my wings.
We now call to come forward family friend Beverly Young.
I don't need this one.
Maybe.
I'm 5'4", I can do this.
You can kick it here.
I'm Beverly Young, most of you know. I'm the widow of Congressman Bill Young. While I was sitting in this audience, I heard two comments. I heard Bruce was the keeper of political secrets, and I heard silent hero. Silent hero came from Jenny, I know, because I love Jenny, and she knows why. Keeper of political secrets came from this stud here, and that was a low blow. Bruce did keep political secrets. Bruce changed history, and you don't know this. 39 years ago, Bruce came into Bill Young's life. Bill Young had decided to retire. We were getting a lot of political pressure, nasty, ugly political pressure, and he decided he just wasn't going to put up with it. He was going to quit. In walks this man, Bruce Epstein. I'd never seen him, never heard of him. Bill didn't know him. He had a talk with my husband. My husband decided to stay in office. Bruce Epstein made that go away. He made the political pressure go away. He made the ugliness go away. I don't know how he did it, but he did it, and my husband stayed in. Because my husband stayed in, Bruce changed the history of America. If Bill would have left, the National C.W. Bill Young Merrill program would not exist, and thousands of people would have died if he wouldn't have done that. The Navy would not be sailing away. We would not have made top secret military aircraft. We would not have given our soldiers the best equipments they needed to go into this war. This all happened because Bruce jumped in and stopped Bill from walking away from the troubles. The silent hero, he is our hero. He kept things. He never let him go. Bruce could have made a lot of money because he knew Bill Young like nobody else knew Bill Young, and he knew me. So Bruce is our hero. He's my hero. Amy is my hero. Amy saved my life so many times. Bruce continued. Our son, our first son was born 39 years ago, 38 years ago. And he quit breathing, and he had to be resuscitated. They said he choked on milk, and they were sending him home. Bruce Epstein came in and said, that's not what happened. This kid's not leaving this hospital. So Bruce put him in the hospital, and after a lot of tests, they found that my son had sleep apnea, a severe sleep apnea. And if Bruce wouldn't have diagnosed him, my son would have died. Sudden infant death syndrome. Bruce saved my child's life. And then 3 years later, another child was born, and Bruce knew what he was doing. He hooked my son up to a heart monitor at birth, and in 5 hours, my son quit breathing. That was my second son. So Bruce saved both of my children's life against all odds. And then, of course, on the side, Jay saved our son's life again, like 30 years later. But I knew a side of Bruce that you didn't. Bill knew a side of Bruce that didn't. And Bruce is the silent hero because he sat back while Bill continued to do the National Bone Marrow Registry and continued to buy airplanes and planes and boats and ships and everything. And it's because of Bruce. Because otherwise we'd be living somewhere in the mountains. So Bruce is our silent hero, and we love him. His kids have walked beside Bill the entire time for their young years, and I just know him so completely different. I would like to say thank you, Major Epstein. You've served your country well in more ways than one, and you've completed your mission. I love you.
We now call to come forward Bruce's grandkids, Leah, Jacob, Noah, Skylar, Samantha, Allison, Lauren. Please come forward.
I guess I have to go first because I'm the oldest. Okay. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Leah Alexander, and I have the privilege of being Bruce and Amy's oldest grandchild. There are not many 30-year-olds that are able to reflect on 30 years full of love and life, surrounded by all 4 grandparents. Today, even in the toughest of circumstances, I feel lucky. And today, looking out, seeing all of you, our family, friends, and Jewish community, aren't we all so lucky? I wanted to take a few moments to reflect on some of the lessons my papa taught me, and probably some of you as well. Number 1, always prioritize family. It was no question that Papa Bruce put his family first, whether that be my Nana, his 3 children, or 7 grandchildren. Our family came first. Countless vacations to some pretty amazing places, I might add, and several holidays and many events. I can't say soccer games here because everyone knows that I am the least athletic of the grandchildren. He was the first to put a smile on your face every visit from Ohio to Florida, often surprising us with the latest and greatest on our car seats. Most memorable is the countless rolls of bubble tape, which was alluded to earlier, consumed on the car rides all the way from the Tampa airport to Seminole Lake Country Club. I think it was around my 10th birthday, I was begging my mom for this 7-foot tall light-up palm tree from this new store that had opened in the mall. You know, being her, she said, and rightfully so, "What are you going to do with that? Why do you need that?" I don't really know why to this day, but lo and behold, I slept at Nana and Papa's the night before and woke up to a blueberry bagel from Stu's Bagels and the 7-foot tall light-up palm tree in the middle of their living room. Boy, did that put a smile on my face, all thanks to Papa. Second lesson, always work hard. As many of you know, our Papa was an amazing doctor and community icon. His work ethic and passion for his job was instilled in me from a young age. And every time we talked on the phone in these recent years, he would ask if I was the CEO of Abercrombie yet. Not yet, Papa, I'd say, not yet. I will continue to show up every day and work with passion and grit to make him proud. To take us on a more lighthearted note, I was reminded of this one last night. Getting the mail is one of the best parts of the day. I've never met someone who willingly had more USPS mail cartons in their garage, label makers on his desk, and a love for the UPS truck. I've always wondered why I loved getting the mail, whether it be coming back from vacation and kind of stocking up on a few days, or taking a break in the workday to go get it. I do think I have Papa to thank for this. Number 4, he taught us how to be proud to be Jewish and remember where we came from. We all know this is threaded through him and my Nana's work as founding members of the Florida Holocaust Museum and their generous efforts toward many other Jewish organizations. One of the fondest family memories of mine was a trip to Israel we took back in 2015. How lucky am I to say that we experienced this beautiful country that is Israel with my grandparents by our side. We were lucky enough to celebrate our youngest cousin and their youngest grandchild, Lauren's bat mitzvah. Not many people can say that. And in fact, I returned to Israel on birthright last year and was so proud to say that it wasn't my first trip there, all because of Papa. He also taught us to have perfectly combed hair. I don't really know anyone whose white hair was perfectly combed like that, and for those of you that know me and the effort it takes to tame my mane, I'll always take that with me. Number 6, he also taught us it was okay to be messy. You couldn't have a meal with this man without there being crumbs under the table, chocolate in his beard, or Diet Coke stains somewhere. Usually because he just got overexcited by the simple joys that his favorite foods brought him. I distinctly will always remember the color, feel, and look of the Diet Coke and chocolate Dairy Queen stained on his leather convertible seats. Picture this, a big gulp in one hand, chocolate ice cream cone in the other. Usually that meant he was driving with his knees. And number 7, He taught us that the Tampa airport was and is the best airport in the world. The memories are still crystal clear of us running off the plane to see Nana and Papa waiting plainside. I still, to this day, tell everyone that the Tampa airport is the best airport in the world. Riding on that monorail, it will always remind me of vacations to see Nana and Papa. I hope that this day and these next few weeks can allow for everyone here to remember the fond memories they had of my grandfather. Whether you are related to us, a patient, a friend, a neighbor, we can all share in the joy that my Papa brought to our lives. I will forever be proud to be his first and oldest granddaughter and ensure to carry his legacy forward. Thank you all for being here today and supporting our family. We love you.
All right, so we'll try to hold back the tears. I get that from my mother, my uncle. I'll try to keep it brief. It's obviously very touching seeing all of you here. I know my grandpa had a huge impact on everyone's life, myself included. I just want to share a couple stories, one of which, as many of us know, anytime we'd go to their house, he'd probably be hunkered down in his office. There were many times I went there, figured, oh, what's he doing over there? On the computer. Eventually I learned how to create websites, work on montages, and it led me in 7th grade to do a history fair project on the inventor of the cell phone. So this was in the infancy kind of the internet, mid-2000s, and I ended up meeting the inventor of the cell phone on Skype, and then my bar mitzvah was about a couple months later. So on the Friday of my bar mitzvah, for the state convention that I had made it to, he and I flew up to Tallahassee, much to my mom's chagrin, because, you know, I got a bar mitzvah to attend. And we did it. Unfortunately, I didn't win, but he and I went. We made it back in time. The bar mitzvah went off without a hitch. And then a month later, we took a trip, my grandmother, grandfather and I, to California, and we met him in person. And that's, excuse me, something I'll never forget. You know, I still keep in contact with the inventor of the cell phone, Martin Cooper. He always asks me how Papa's doing. Number 2, his love of family, as we mentioned, his love of Judaism and how important it is to be family oriented. And early on in my teens, I was always interested in genealogy, working on a family tree. I had realized he had done a lot of work, but just hadn't made much progress. So after my first year of medical school, I had some time in the summer to continue that. I haven't had much time since, but I know many people are watching now. I've spoken to other relatives of ours. I was able to expand our tree to about 2,000 people, find that some of my cousins were in my fraternity. I mean, it's a very great project, and I'm happy to carry on his legacy for that. And I'll end on a lighthearted note, piggybacking off what my Uncle Jay said earlier. So in the summer of 2008, about 25 of us took a cruise to Hawaii. Of course, we had to make sure to stick out like sore thumbs. In classic Jewish form, I believe it said, "Why is this cruise different from all other cruises?" Okay, so we're on the cruise, having a great time. You know how they have events at night after dinner. One of the events was the Newlywed Game. So we scrambled to get there, and we got there was a huge pew in front. We got the whole thing. I remember Noah and I were locking it down. We were probably 12 at the time. Like, no, we have like 25 people. We need all this space. So they're asking people to put names in the hat. Of course, I will go to my grave saying I only put their name in once. Everyone thinks I put it in multiple times. But I put my grandparents' name in the hat, and first name gets called, not them. Second name gets called, not them. Third couple, Bruce and Amy Epstein from St. Petersburg, Florida. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, everyone thought, this was a joke, but so they go up there. Of For those of you who don't know how the newlywed game works, they have one spouse present, the other spouse is hidden, ear muffed so they can't hear what the answers are. And the question gets posed to my grandmother. What is the strangest thing you've seen your spouse do in the nude? She gives her answer. They bring the husbands back. And his answer is, pulled back the bathroom door and conducting Beethoven's Fifth for her. Naked, of course. Quite the image a 12-year-old grandson wants to hear of his grandfather. It's probably one of the best stories, so I wanted to share it with you all. Actually, the best part about that story is that, so they always had reruns on the cruise CCTV. So you could watch that thing 10 times a day. So anytime our grandfather was walking through the halls, whatever, on the pool deck, anyone goes like this, and that was it. But, I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite stories. I could go on and on. I appreciate everyone sharing their stories, their thoughts. I see them on the obituary or on Facebook and people sharing, and it really means a lot. So we're going to miss them. We love them. And thank you.
I don't think I need this. Me and Noah got the heights from our parents a little bit. So I think I'm going to kind of speak for me and Noah. I guess I got the verbal kind of thing from my parents too. He's a little quiet. So growing up, we lived in Georgia, so it was a little bit more difficult to see Papa. But when they did come, him and Nana, we would always go to Dairy Queen and get ice cream for dinner. It was, all right, here we go, let's go. We're getting in the car, we're going. Large cone would get finished in the drive-thru line.
I wouldn't even leave the drive-thru.
Yeah. When we did move to Florida, I remember one time where Papa pulled all of the candy and ice cream out in the morning and said, you know what, we're just gonna have ice cream for breakfast. I don't feel like cooking, so that's what we're gonna do. When I was in school, I had a teacher that couldn't stand me. She's like, oh, you know, your brother's Noah Epstein, and that was always the joke. And then she found out my grandfather was Papa. And she went to him when she was little. And so automatically she was like my best friend. So now we were friends, and I would get A's on every paper and test. The coolest thing, I don't think a lot of people know about this, but a couple weeks ago I went over to his house, and I didn't know he played piano. I had no idea. Until, you know, he sat down and Nana said, hey, there's your piano, why don't you play your piano? And he started playing, and I have video on my phone, and it's just the coolest thing that I had no idea that he even did this, and he was amazing. Even, you know, a couple weeks ago he could still play, and he would sing, and when he was in the hospital, he wasn't really very conscious, but I would sit in his room with him, and we put on Frank Sinatra, and he was singing, New York, New York. I don't know the words exactly, but he was still singing, even as he wasn't really conscious. I think my mom really touched on this. He really, you know, with my grandma dying, my brother and I, you know, we've been through this with my grandma. And it was really hard, you know, seeing her decline, and it was really hard, you know, last week seeing him decline in the hospital. It was very, very difficult in the past couple years with his Parkinson's. But I'm just really glad that, you know, my grandma is gonna have someone now to be with, and they loved each other. They would talk all the time about how, oh, we are going over to, you know, Christy's mom's house today, and they were so excited to go and see them and visit with them. It was the light up of the, the biggest thing this past week, looking right at Josh for this, he told my brother and I that we need to take this as a positive thing, and we need to build relationships and keep your family close. And I think that's really, really super important. I guess sometimes we lose touch, we get busy, we don't call them. but I've really gotten extremely close with my parents and my brother. If you guys know my brother and I, we've hated each other all through our lives, and now we're friends. Wow. So it's really taught me a whole lot. I think a really big thing for me as well is kind of just in my head. I've been kind of thinking about the song. I don't know if you guys know the song by Phil Collins, "You'll Be in My Heart." It keeps playing in my head, and I keep thinking about that, and I just know that Papa's gonna be with me. My grandma's still with me, Papa's still gonna be with me, and no matter what happens, he's always there, and he's always been there for me. I know when I went to paramedic school and I became a paramedic, he just pushed me, kept pushing me. And he would want to hear my stories. And what are you doing? Oh, you had a AAA. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you had, this or that. We would discuss stories, and he was always just so proud of me and pushed me to be the best person I could be. One last thing I want to end with is I'm an Epstein. I love being an Epstein. I'm on the field as a paramedic with Sunstar. And all the firefighters, they go to send me the report. What's your last name? Epstein. Oh, I know your grandpa. Or they think it's my dad, but I know your family. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Here's another story. Here we go. And so it'll just, they would just talk and, hey, your last name's not very common. And I love my last name. It's super cool that I'm an Epstein. I love that. And it's just an awesome thing that I feel like. I know you guys, we're an Epsteins, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And my brother is the last one, so, he's got that on his shoulders. So you better have a boy because.
So one story I wanted to share about Papa was, as everybody knows, I'm a fishing junkie. Absolutely love fishing. I would do it whenever I'm not working. And Papa was actually the one, I came here from vacation from Georgia, and he said, "What do you want to do today?" And I said, "Papa, I want to go fishing." And he looked at me like I was crazy. He had a little convertible. He said, "How are we going to put fishing rods in here?" But he made it happen. We went to the tackle shop. We got all the tackle. He took me out to Reddington Pier, and he sat out there all day with me. I know he didn't want to be there, but all he cared was to make me and all his grandchildren happy. So I just wanted to thank him for that, because he put me on that path towards fishing, and I love that now. So thank you very much, Papa, and we're going to miss you very, very much.
We will try to keep this super short, but sure. All right, so I think some of the common sentiments we've heard today is Papa's selflessness, but also his love of ice cream. So I'm going to share a story that sort of encompasses both. So as you all know, Grandpa and Nana would take us all on vacation. So when we were around 10, Allie and I went to Washington, D.C. We went to Washington, D.C. with Nana and Papa. And we were eating lunch in the Capitol building with Aunt Bev and Uncle Bill. And Papa turns to me at the end of the meal and he goes, how do milkshakes sound? And I'm like, sure, I'll take a chocolate milkshake. Sounds great. And he turns to the waiter and he goes, okay, we'll take 3 chocolate milkshakes. And the waiter goes, I'm sorry, we don't serve milkshakes in the Capitol lunchroom. And he goes, well, do you have ice cream? And he was like, yeah. Do you have milk? Yeah. Do you have chocolate syrup? Yes. He goes, okay, then you can make milkshakes. And so then the waiter, he said it very humbly, of course, in true Papa fashion. But the waiter sort of looks surprised for a minute and goes, okay, I guess I'll go get you milkshakes then. And so to this day, I think we are some of the only people to ever have milkshakes in the Capitol lunchroom. But it's who Papa was. He loved his ice cream and he loved his family. And so he always would do whatever it took to, just a funny story. Lauren, you're next. Oh, I have more, but Lauren.
So I know that we've all been hearing all these stories about Papa as the most amazing pediatrician and how he was always helping so many kids, making healthy decisions. and making healthy choices. And I think some of my memories with Papa were kind of the opposite. So my mom was a dentist, my dad was a doctor, my grandpa was a dentist. That didn't fare well with me in getting candy and junk food, but I think it was the opposite whenever I was with Papa. So I think some of my fondest memories, like Skylar said, we called that crazy breakfast, Sam, Allie, and I did. So we'd sleep there, they'd have a drawer with all this food, and our breakfast would be chocolate and whatever we wanted. And to my parents, it was scrambled eggs. That's what they always thought. And this trend sort of continued when we turned, I think it was 10? Yeah. We all got to pick a trip. So Sam and Allie chose to go to the American Girl Doll Factory because they love dolls. I love chocolate, so I said I want to go wherever it's made. So we went on a trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it was supposed to be me and my grandparents. For some reason, I invited my sisters. Still unsure why, but they came along. And the big thing was going to I forget the name, the Hershey Park with all the rides, because I loved rides. Then we get there, and I'm 10 years old. I'm probably 4 feet something, and I was too short to ride a single ride. So it was my trip, but instead Sam, Allie, and Nana rode every single roller coaster all day, while I sat with Papa, and the only thing left for us to do was eat. So he took me on a giant food tour. I think we had Dippin' Dots, churros. There's pictures of me with every junk food you could buy in this park. And of course, Papa, with his photoshopping abilities, photoshopped salads, and there's a picture of us sitting there. I'm clearly eating a big thing of ice cream, and there's just like a cucumber over it to my parents. I don't really think anyone bought it, but that's what Papa did. And he just went out of his way. I mean, I think he felt bad, it's my trip, and Sam, Allie, and Anna are having the time of their lives. So I know he wanted to make it special for me, and my memories with Papa were just sitting in this park all day eating, and he just did everything he possibly could to make sure I had fun. And I still remember this trip so well. I can remember every detail. It was one of my favorite trips that I've ever had, and I think it just shows so much about my grandfather and about his love for his family, like we've all said. I mean, he did everything he could for me, and I know that he just loved his family more than anything in this entire world. And I know that he's looking down, so happy that everyone's here. All the family from all over are here today, gathered. And looking back, this trip and so many more experiences I had with Papa Bruce are definitely some of the best memories I've ever had. And I'll never forget sitting in that theme park all day with him eating, or the crazy breakfast, or even when I would just sit on his lap in his office, like when we were hiding, and I'd just play Teletubbies on his lap all day, every day. And I'm gonna miss it.
So as many of you have heard, growing up, none of us could go anywhere without someone would hear our last name, it would be, Bruce Epstein, you're not related to Bruce Epstein, are you? And I'd be like, of course I am, it's my grandfather. And it became this bit where we would just go back and forth, and everyone would rave and be like, he was my pediatrician, he was my kid's pediatrician. And they would then go into this whole thing about how amazing he was, and he taught me this, he taught me that. And for me, this has taken on a very different meaning, as I am now in Cleveland, one of his favorite cities, where he grew up, raised his family, attending his medical school, and I want to be a pediatrician or go into pediatrics just like him. Yeah, we were very fortunate that he was able to make it to our white coat ceremony. Last July, we started at med school at Case Western, his alma mater, where he was one of the first classes that was dubbed Case Western Reserve University. And he came to Cleveland for our medical white coat ceremony. Sorry, we're a disaster.
It's not going well.
Thank you, Lord. And so I think a surreal moment for me was the very first day that I walked into a patient room and someone introduced me as Dr. Epstein. After very quickly correcting them, I'm student Dr. Epstein. I don't know anything yet. Please don't come to me for medical advice. I took a minute and I thought about, the legacy of all the Dr. Epsteins before me, and all the people that have, all the people that Papa touched. And I just can only hope in my career as a physician to touch a fraction of the people that he touched himself. And we are very lucky that despite his declining health, we were able to get Papa to Cleveland to see us in his favorite place, getting our white coats and following in his path. We love you, Papa.
For our final speaker, we're going to call up Teresa, family friend and Bruce's caretaker over the past few years.
I guess I need a high chair too. Hi, good morning to everyone. For those who do not know me, I'm Teresa. For those who do not know, I've worked with Bruce for 5 years.
A little closer.
I've worked with Bruce for 5 years, for 4 years without taking a day off, which was my choice. Bruce is the kind of person you can't help but love and adore him. I not only speak for myself, but for our faithful and loving caregivers. He was loving and kind to us, as a childlike attitude. Like when we go to a restaurant, he take a straw and shoot it to you. Or pick up an onion rings, put it around his eyes, or we cross his eyes and stick his tongue. Never a boring day with Bruce. He was like a father to me, and so with some of our caregivers. We treated him like our own father, loving and tender. Bruce tries to remember everyone's name. In fact, he even remembered my nickname, which is Dingay, not an easy name to remember. He knows all the servers' name in the dining room and the residents. When I first met Bruce, he was quiet and very reserved. But when he moved to Regal Palms, he changed. When he used to eat at the dining room, he will just sit there and be quiet. But with me, I try to talk to the residents and encourage him to do the same thing. From then on, he became very interested in everyone, asked for their names and history. He became a social butterfly. He will sing in the dining room and brightens the room with his singing, and even requested for him to sing and sit with everyone. His smile is a magnet, very childlike when he laughs. His whole body will shake. He never said anything bad about anybody and find goodness in everyone. He is pleasant. He always says he is great even if he has a bad day. So I say to him, liar, liar, catch a fire. And fine, and he said, I just don't want them to worry about me. We do roll calls calling his friends and family, especially when I notice that he is having a bad day. The calls makes him feel better. Bruce loves his family. It's most especially looks forward to Jay's call and visit, who he knows will call him twice a day or even come over after his lunch break, especially when he is off. Rob, he calls his baby. And his little daughter, he calls his princess, which is Jenny. Bruce loves to sing and sings Once in Love with Amy. That's the love of his life. Bruce loves his sister very much and very proud of all his grandkids. I know it is the hardest thing in saying goodbye to a great person. We love you very much until we meet again. Life is going to feel empty because we will miss him so deeply. I thank Bruce's family for giving us the opportunity to take care of him. In behalf of my co-workers, I wanted to say it was a privilege to work for your father and a big honor to be with him every day. And thank you very much for entrusting him to us, Jay, Jenny, Rob, and the rest of the family. And the only word that I could say to describe Bruce is love. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers. You all did a beautiful job, such a loving tribute to Bruce. God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort, the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures, as you, O God, endure forever. We see the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and your glory. We conclude as we rise together for El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hamse Menucha Nechona Tachat Chanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim U'Tehorim Kezohar Harakia Ma'asirim Et Nishmat Yakirenu Shehalach Le'olamo. Ba'al HaRachamim Yastirehu B'Seter Kenefav Le'olamim, Ve'yitzro B'Torachim Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Bruce, our dear one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. Together we say, Amen.
So on behalf of Serenity Funeral Home, I just want to thank everyone for the trust of entrusting with Bruce. It's been very lovely to hear all the testaments. At this time, I am going to call forth all pallbearers, where we will take Bruce into the coach. There is a graveside service held at Serenity Gardens Memorial Park on Indian Rocks Road at 2 o'clock. So that's where we will gather to lay him to rest. So thank you so much.